events occur in the Untitled.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's Thursday. It's March the 4th. We're just flying through this first week of March, and we're almost to the weekend, but we got another show today. It's going to be fun. We have John Sapichetti joining us. He's going to be here in about a half hour, 25 minutes or so. And, of course, I'm here with my co-host because, hey, I can't do the show without him. So let's give him a big, hearty...
La 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 la.
Oh, an extra la 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 in there. Yeah.
Little extra, yeah. Little Beethoven la la la.
Yeah, good.
Yes. Thursday, March 4th, marching through yet another work week. Already into the meaty part of March. Well, not quite yet, folks. We're still on the skirts, but we're heading in there, and it's interesting. News continues to break around the NFL. There's some admission that I think that we'll be talking about, and just a lot of stuff going on. So without further ado, buddy, let's kick this off.
Yeah, and we lately we've been trying to start every show talking about things that happened on certain days in history and all that. Well, actually, I'm going to start the show by saying, don't forget, folks, you can call or text us 626-310-8882. We had a great phone conversation with Joel yesterday. We hope more of you would like to participate in the show. So absolutely give us a call, shoot us a text. We'll try to get you involved. But we've been trying to start pretty much every show with some sort of historical tidbit or something from TV or movies. And, sometimes that means talking about the anniversary of certain actors or musicians' deaths. And today is no different because, unfortunately, this is the anniversary of, one of the greats that we lost far, far too young. And before I say who it is, I'm going to just play a clip from one of my favorite movies, of which he was a part of. So,
my name's Dewey Oxburger. My friends call me Ox. You might have noticed I've got a slight weight problem. No. Yeah, I do. Well, he told me I swallowed a lot of aggression, along with a lot of pizzas. Pizzas. I'm basically a shy person. I'm a shy guy, and he suggested taking one of these aggression training courses. These aggressive training courses like EST, those type of things. Anyway, it cost $400. $400 to join this thing. Well, I didn't have the money. And I thought to myself, join the Army. It's free. So I figured, while I'm here, I'll lose a few pounds. And you got what, a 6 to 8 week training program here? A real tough one? Which is perfect for me. I'm going to walk out of here a lean, mean fighting machine.
Say it with me, Mike. A lean, mean fighting machine.
Mean fighting machine.
Love it. I love it. It's obviously we're talking about the late great John Candy. Obviously one of many appeerances, roles that he played in his relatively short career, and one of my favorite movies, Stripes. Just a long list of just if you haven't seen the movie, do yourself a favor and go watch that movie today. I don't want you to waste any time. It's a great movie. Bill Murray, obviously, and John Candy, obviously, being the focus of this conversation. But unfortunately, today is the anniversary of his passing. So, at age 43, I believe.
Yeah, at the age of 43, and just too tragic, way too soon to lose such a comedic genius. John Candy is one of my all-time favorite comedic actors. I think you maybe could make the argument he might be my favorite of all time. Just always gave an amazing performance, was understated, didn't have to get bombastic or anything like that. I mean, this guy was just naturally funny at everything that he did. From Stripes, like he just played that clip, it was iconic, phenomenal. He was great in that. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is among my favorite comedies of all time. You look at Uncle Buck, even just, small cameo parts that he would play in movies like Home Alone or The Blues Brothers. Just an amazing guy. And from what I gathered, from what I've heard from people that knew him well, is that he was the prototypical heart of gold. He would do anything to help anybody. Was just a really good person. And it's a shame that we lost him so young, but great body of work left behind by John Candy, and definitely I'll be watching a movie or two of his today in his honor.
Yeah, I'm thinking Uncle Buck might be. I've been wanting to watch that. I have the DVD, so I've been wanting to watch that recently, and obviously I knew of his passing today. I just obviously it wasn't at the front of my memory, so I had to jog my memory to see that. So today might be that appropriate time to finally bite the bullet and watch that. But I'm surprised, Mike, you did not mention Spaceballs.
Oh,
of
it's
all
there.
The movies
It's always there.
that you just rattled
half
off.
Man, half dog.
Always while I'm eating.
That may be the most sentimental of all my my favorites. The regard with which I hold that movie, and without any question, his portrayal of Barf. What's your full name? Bartholomew. Great stuff by the late great John Candy. Just versatility, and he could do it all. He really could.
Very. In a lot of ways, so similar to Chris Farley, in just kind of how their careers, they're. I mean, you mentioned, John Candy didn't have to be bombastic and animated, and that was kind of Chris Farley's style, but for the most part, there were two just naturally gifted, just funny people.
Two of the best.
Yeah,
two of the best of all time.
Exactly, and unfortunately, died of very similar reasons, both struggling with weight issues. John obviously was notorious for going on binge eating streaks where, he got really, really heavy. Obviously, Chris Farley was always struggling with it, but then there was also the drinking and, things like cocaine, which, that is unfortunately something that was pretty prevalent in his time for sure. And for his contemporaries, I mean, the jobs that they did, the late nights, the lifestyle of being a comedian, obviously ones that worked on Saturday Night Live, that whole just lifestyle in and of itself breeds this type of behavior. And look, he wasn't necessarily the healthiest guy, just because of his weight issues, and he had some family history. So unfortunately, that led to a very early death, and in a again very similar fashion that we lost Chris Farley. So, and like you said, two of the greats right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess you could look at the lifestyles that they lived as cautionary tales. It's a slippery slope to start going down that rabbit hole, because there's so much that goes into how people live their lives and the styles that they choose to live. And, not something that, I don't know. I know, I speak for myself. I don't speak for anybody else. I know I'm not qualified to tell anybody else how they should live or what they should do. But it is sad that we had to lose such two comedic talents. Both he and I include the late great John Belushi in that. That crowd as well. Just phenomenal comedic talents that really just could make those three guys. When you look at Belushi, when you look at Candy, and you look at Farley, they almost didn't have to say a word to make people laugh. Just the way that they conducted themselves, the mannerisms that they had, the smile, the warmth that they had when they took to the screen. That's something you don't see often, and it was really lightning in a bottle when you look at those three particularly. And there are a lot of great comedic actors out there. I don't mean to sound like that. Oh, these are the only three guys that are funny, and everybody else is terrible. Far from it. But at the same time, I just really, these are three of my favorites. And anytime there's a Belushi movie on, a Farley movie on, or a John Candy movie on, I just can't help but watch. And I think that speaks a lot to their legacy. And all three of them were taken from us way too soon. But they left a body of work behind that will never, ever go away. Those movies are still celebrated today, and they always will be, because they're great movies, and they're great entertainment.
Yeah, and look, this isn't a situation where, and actually it's ironically or coincidentally, we're going to have John later, and we brought this notion up when we were talking about the passing of a musician, I believe, a few months ago. But this isn't an instance of, because they passed early, that their abilities get inflated. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it does tend to happen. Especially with artists or comedians or whoever, people, celebrities that pass on too early. More often than not, I do feel like what they've done kind of balloons a little bit. It was good. Don't get me wrong, but I think it gets elevated to a level that maybe it doesn't probably necessarily deserve to be. Now, there are very, very notable exceptions. We talk about Prince a lot on the show. He died early, and again, what people say about Prince, well, it's true. He was great. He was great before he passed, and when after he passed, it wasn't like people all of a sudden realized he was great. Talk about I just had a name off the top of my head. I completely lost it. I lost my train of thought, Mike. But you have Prince, you have guys like, whatever you think about Michael Jackson, he died young. Obviously he had a reputation of being one of the greatest entertainers. And then you go to Chris Farley and guys like John Candy and John Belushi. So all those guys their reputation didn't balloon after they passed. These guys were as good as people say and remember them as. And even going back and watching the movies, they still get you. Like every single time, the joke's coming, the bit's coming, the routine with these guys, but it's funny every single time. And I wouldn't have it on any other way. I'm glad that we got to get what we could out of them, but it's unfortunate that we couldn't get any more.
Exactly. But so well said, perfectly said, is that the legacy that these guys left behind was only going to get better. It was only going to
real
grow.
quick. I was going to say Tupac. That was the other name. It just a lot, because again, he's a guy, obviously a lot of people consider him the greatest or one of the greatest rappers of all time, and his reputation didn't grow because he died. Everything people say about him is true and holds true today. So yeah, sorry about that. It finally just popped back into my head. I was like, what was that third name I was going to mention? I couldn't remember.
No, you're absolutely right. That's a great and apt comparison in terms of going across different lines of entertainment, and even athletes. When you look at some of the athletes that we've lost in their prime, during their playing days, I think of Roberto Clemente passing away in a plane crash. Thurman Munson the same way. Obviously, recently we've experienced the tragic loss of Kobe Bryant, but Kobe's playing days were done. We're talking about people that were still in the midst of their careers that had more to give. And not to say that Kobe didn't, and I don't mean to make the
court
comparison here,
but off the court, obviously, but yeah,
I'm sorry,
I was going to say off the court he could have, but I know what you're saying. You're obviously talking about on the court. He wasn't coming out of retirement.
Right in the midst of their career. And actors and entertainers are a little bit different because their careers tend to range a little bit more. Athletes do have a finite period period of time, unless you're Tom Brady, where you're able to
Yeah.
go through
We're gonna get to him,
and
don't worry.
you know, and you know, you have a start and a finish to your career, and generally it's at a relatively young age as compared to most other professions. But yeah, just it really makes you reflect and think about everything that these entertainers gave to us, and it also makes you think about the fragility of life. You know, I'm so guilty of this myself, maybe more guilty than anybody else that I know of, wasting time, letting time go by, and not really acting on what means the most to you. Try not to do that, folks, because one day you might regret that decision. And, you know, I'm lucky enough where I'm still able to make those decisions. You don't want to wait until it's too late. So, getting back to, you know, getting the levity up with with the show, watch a John Candy movie today if you can. It'll definitely make you laugh. It'll make you smile. I know I will. I think it'll probably be Spaceballs, because I love seeing him portray Barf. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be that'll be a good fitting tribute.
I generally watch Stripes probably once a week anyways, so I might have to move up that rotation to today and then again add in Uncle Buck, because that's something I just actually haven't watched. And by watched, I mean, you know, put it on in the background, because, hey, you work from home, you might as well. So, you know, you mentioned Tom Brady, and, you know, we're going to talk about him today. Surprise, surprise. But for good reason, because yesterday, the artist formerly known as the greatest of all time, Joe Montana, appeared on ESPN's First Take, a show that we all love so very, very much. One of our favorite commentators resides on that program. But he appeared on the program, and he was asked, obviously, about his former team and Jimmy Garoppolo, a conversation that was sparked by a podcast that we produce here at fullpresscoverage.com. Nice little plug for us, and it keeps on coming. But he also talked, and he was asked, of course, about the reigning Super Bowl MVP, Tom Brady.
How do you feel about that? Is there a GOAT in the NFL? Was it you? Has Brady replaced you?
I think Tom has, you know, taken his place on the top up there a long time ago. So he's had a tremendous career. It's fun to watch. And, yeah, everybody always contests over that. But I think if you look at what Tom's been able to accomplish in his time that he's played, I think is, you know, puts him definitely up there in the top of the list. There's a lot of great guys. As I said before me, even, you know, you go back to Otto Graham, who won 10 or 11 championships. So it's hard to compare them, but, you know, if you're looking at it, yeah, definitely Tom at that point.
I don't know if he was a little sick, his throat's a little sore, or maybe that was just so painful for him to finally have to admit. And look, I don't blame him. I'm not knocking Joe Montana at all. If I was a competitor, I would obviously believe that I was still the best, and that I have no issue with that. I do think he was probably just sick or had like a sore throat or something, but it did kind of sound like he was choking on his words, that it was so awful for him to actually finally have to say, because it's not like he's denied it explicitly, but he's always kind of danced around the question if it's been posed to him. And this was pretty definitive. And, you know, again, the key thing being, he said this happened several years ago. So this is a feeling, if he's being honest, he's likely felt for a couple years now, as I think a lot of people have, a lot of reasonable people.
Yeah, without question. I mean, there's no question about it. It's a tough thing for an athlete to admit. And I think a lot of ways you look at Joe Montana now, actually, you know, making that admission, and I think that it's a foregone conclusion. I think in a lot of ways, with you know, especially the way we look at it, we know exactly who the greatest of all time is. But at the same time, it's also good for you know, for I think, you know, the rest of the Twitterverse to hear this. Although I'm still waiting for the arguments, and I know they're going to be out there. Oh, what does he know? He doesn't know anything. You know, that was the argument that I used to get a lot when I would defend Tom on Twitter, and people would say, "Well, why do you think he's the greatest?" Well, because I listen to people that have played with him and against him. Oh, well, what do they know? Oh, well, I'm sure people that actually put on the uniform, played the game, no less than you with your 30 followers that are sitting there with a with a keyboard thinking that you know everything there is to know about football, and that people who actually play the game don't. So I'm just waiting on that excuse to say, well, Montana doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't buy that. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I think this was a foregone conclusion. I think that him admitting this is pretty much just like admitting that the sky is going to show at some point, during the week. It's inevitable. It's not. There's really no argument to me. I think that argument has long been settled for quite a while. It is funny though that we are talking about Joe Montana in a relevant case today, in a relevant circumstance. Because it was actually Joe Montana during one of the greatest drives in Super Bowl history that looked up to calm his teammates down and says, "Hey, isn't that John Candy up there in the stand? Super Bowl 23. We all remember it." And to me, I think it really kind of brings everything together full circle, that we're not only talking about John Candy, but we're also talking about Joe Montana today in a relevant circumstance. And that was a pretty good synergy between the two. When you had mentioned about Candy, and I knew we were going to talk about Montana today, it's the first thing that came into my mind.
Yeah, don't you love when that works out like that? I'm actually trying. So, I look, kind of like what you said. What's Montana going to say? At this point, it's like you gotta know when to throw in the towel. At a certain point, you just gotta accept. Again, I think, this is a little painful for him to say publicly, sure. But again, that's just the competitive nature of it all. I'm trying to, I wrote something just kind of commenting on this piece yesterday, and I'm trying to pull up the notes that I had, but, we've seen them before, though, and I will try to specify them, but I don't want to go ruffling through pages while I'm on mic here, because that's annoying. Essentially since 2014, Tom Brady's had the playoff success of Joe Montana. Which is absurd to think about. But in the playoffs, Tom is 16-3 since 2014. He has more passing yards, like three fewer touchdowns, fewer interceptions, more Super Bowl appearances. They both have 4 wins. Again, there's no question at this point. And, I think he realizes if he's coming on a program like First Take, just weeks after Tom Brady wins his 7th Super Bowl, you're probably going to be asked that question. And I think he's getting ahead of the curve, because what's going to happen next year when he has double the Super Bowl victories? And you heard it here first, folks. Back to back.
Are you trying to say 8 is enough?
No, 8 is never enough. I know the reference. I get the reference. I appreciate it. But no, with Tom Brady, 8 is not enough.
No, it's not. It's never going to be enough, because he's always going to be in pursuit of the next one, folks. That's what drives Tom Brady.
No, absolutely. And look, it's fun. We're going to, John's going to join us here in just a few moments, and we'll ask him about this. And, he'll agree. But look, these two guys, in my opinion, are for quite some time are going to be firmly entrenched as the top 2 quarterbacks of all time. Maybe perhaps someday some quarterback will come along that will surpass Tom Brady. Sorry, Chiefs fans, I don't think he's in the league yet, because realistically, how can that person be in the league when Tom is still winning and competing right now? It's not like Tom's career is over and, everyone else has a level playing field. No, this guy is still playing. So I'd say that player is yet to have entered the league. Perhaps he's not even born yet. We don't know. We don't even know if this person will ever exist. Probably, maybe at some point, maybe long down the road, we'll be talking, maybe Tom Brady will be up there, just like Joe Montana on First Take. They're still talking about LeBron. They're still talking about all the normal subjects. But this time they're asking Tom Brady about, this guy. So, again, we'll see. But for now, I think those two guys, for the very foreseeable future, are very firmly entrenched as the top 2 quarterbacks to ever play this game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And I say that with a lot of reverence and a lot of, deference to guys like Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, Johnny Unitas, guys that have played this game at a very, very high level and have amassed tremendous careers throughout their playing years. But I really think when you look at the top two, I don't think you can make the argument that it's Tom Brady, it's Joe Montana, and then you can start to fill in the rest when it comes to rankings. To me, the rankings begin at 3; they don't begin at 1, and that's just how I feel on the subject. And I know you're like-minded as well. You'll get a lot of people that will argue, and believe me, if there are people that will argue, my good buddy is going to be able to find them for you right here. But I think it's a foregone conclusion now that is the way it is when it comes to quarterback rankings all time.
I was going to say, if you want to argue, give us a call, 626-310-888-2. As long as my voice can handle it, as you can tell, it's starting to go away. It's been a long week. I've done a lot of talking, so I'm trying to recover a little bit. But if you do feel the need to dispute the fact that Tom Brady and Joe Montana are the top 2 quarterbacks to ever play this game, give us a call, 626-310-888-2. Or, hey, why not? Give us a text. Or tell us what your favorite John Candy moment is, or movie, or appearance, whatever. Let's talk whatever we feel like talking about. Like I said, we're going to have John Sapichetti join us here in a moment, and we'll likely get his comments not only on this, but of course on John Candy, because I know he's likely and very obviously a fan as well. So Tom Brady 1, Joe Montana 2. Nothing's going to change anytime soon, in my opinion. Maybe in my lifetime. Who knows? At this rate, Tom might play until he's 50, 55. At that point, I'll be in my 40s. I mean, at that, let's see what happens. So, I don't know. It's every time I think about it, it's silly and just absurd. But at least we got some good content out of that. Out of, like I said, the artist formerly known as the greatest of all time. But we do have our special guest finally joining us right now. John, how you doing this afternoon? What's going on?
This afternoon?
This morning,
9:30 in the morning.
9:30. I've been up since about 5 o'clock this morning. It feels like the afternoon, let me tell you.
Why are you up so early?
No days off, my friend. No days off. Hitting the grind early, I got to be Tom Brady.
Have you found a quarterback for the Patriots yet? Because that's what Belichick should be doing at this point with his no days off mantra.
Well, I think he's got some ideas. He's got some good ones, I'm sure. We'll see. Well, go ahead.
The whole conversation this week on social media was about, paid or unpaid internships.
Oh, yeah.
I got the bright idea that Belichick is going to get an unpaid intern to play quarterback so
Johnny
he can save money there.
Johnny Foxborough. I know he's been waiting to use him. No, look, Mike and I have talked about this a little bit. I think we both kind of feel like Cam Newton's going to be back, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad option. I just don't see where there's a place to improve out there, and I'm not interested in making a lateral move. I'd rather just, give Cam another shot with a more traditional offseason, and one in which he's fully healthy. I mean, let's not forget, he came into this season having missed a majority of the season before. So, I'd like to give him another run at things as well, and just kind of see. Like I said, I just don't see an option out there. I'm not really into the Jimmy Garoppolo momentum. I'm not a fan at all of bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, Marcus Mariota. No, I'm good. Like I said, I'd rather roll the dice with Cam Newton again. So, I mean, ideally, Tom Brady will have a change of heart and decide he wants to come back to New England. But that's unfortunately not going to happen. Only in my wildest dreams.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is a wild dream. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm anybody but Cam Newton. I don't think he can throw the football. I don't know if he's ever going to be healthy. Every year that goes by, there's wear and tear on that body. I would think that even Mariota or Fitzpatrick or Garoppolo, any of those three would be upgrades over Cam Newton. The perfect marriage would be Jimmy Garoppolo coming back, and of course, Bill Belichick embracing him at the airport like a long-lost son coming back from the military. But that's a dangerous move for Belichick if he brings Garoppolo back, because at that point, the narrative would be, okay, this is the guy that Bill wanted to hand the keys to the car several years ago and get rid of Brady. And if Garoppolo fails here, then the narrative becomes, thank God he didn't get his way, because the Patriots wouldn't have won that 6th Super Bowl over the Rams if Garoppolo had been quarterback. So that's kind of a dangerous move for Belichick's legacy. And whether you think so or not, Belichick's legacy is very important to Belichick.
Oh, of course. Well, I think it's just a bad move from a football standpoint, let alone legacy standpoint. I mean, you talk about Cam Newton being healthy. Well,
True.
What about Jimmy Garoppolo? I like Jimmy. I liked him when he was here. I happen to believe that it wasn't I think, of course, Bill saw Jimmy as a potential starting quarterback, and obviously he was, and he's been good enough to start in this league. But I never don't think he anticipated Brady playing at this level still. And that's where the forcing Jimmy Garoppolo out is what happened, not storming up into an office and saying I want him traded, because that's the exact opposite of what we know about Tom Brady.
Right.
So to me, I just don't see Jimmy Garoppolo as a realistic or a really good option, and same with like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, do I want to be 9-7?
That's better than 7-9, right?
No, it's true. But at the same time, I can be 9-7 with Cam Newton, and just know that everything, and this is going to sound crazy, but everything outside of actual football, we know he is excelling at in terms of leadership in the locker room, bringing these guys together. This team is going to get a talent infusion with the return of guys like Hightower and Chung, and I do trust Bill Belichick to improve this team with not only the money that they have to spend, but I don't buy into this with him being a bad GM. I think that's absurd. I think he's a really good GM, and I think they're going to put a more talent around him. So I'm willing to roll the dice one more year and see if his abilities on the field improve, because I don't want to go back too far, but you go back to the start of 2018, and that first half of the season, he was a pretty good quarterback. And I'm not saying that he's going to elevate above that level, and I have no wild expectations for him to return to 2015 level, but I feel like the best move for this team is to run back with Cam, see what you have out of him with a full offseason in a season in which he's healthy with a presumably better team around him, and maybe you take a run at someone in the draft and kind of play it that way. I just go into guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick or Marcus Mariota or Jimmy Garoppolo or Derek Carr or whoever. I think it's just it's pointless to me. Like, I'm not willing, if Cam is a top 20 quarterback, I don't think it's worth moving up to get the 15th best quarterback. You know what I mean? To me, the difference is marginal, and I'd rather run back with Cam, knowing that we know his ability, at least inside the locker room and with his teammates, is there. So.
Well, eventually he'll maybe find a way to throw the football accurately.
No,
I know
his
completion percentage was fairly high, but we watched him enough to see that he has problems throwing the football. And I don't know if he ever has recovered from that horrific shoulder injury.
Sure.
He also was dealing with a foot injury the year before. Can maybe screw up your mechanics, to say the least. So
do we know
if you run
Marcus
back
Mariota
with Cam
can throw the
Newton and
football?
you draft the quarterback maybe in the second or third round, I don't see them getting one of the 5 top quarterbacks coming out of the draft. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is going to go 1. We expect Zach Wilson to go 2. A lot of rumors now that the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson and move on from Sam Darnold. Mac Jones is just flying up the draft board. I doubt he's going to be available at 15. Washington could take him. Carolina could take him. Even the 49ers could take him. And that's not to mention Justin Fields and Trey Lance. I think 5 quarterbacks will be gone by pick 12, which leaves the Patriots looking at the 6th best quarterback who doesn't really fit in as a first-round pick. So maybe Kellen Mond is someone that you can get in the second round. And you develop him behind Cam Newton, and you go from there. The bigger issue is building out the rest of this roster, right? I mean, their defense was average to below average last year. Their front 7 needs, as you said, an infusion of talent. Now, if Hightower comes back and is close to being what Hightower's been since he's been here, which I believe is the most underrated player in the last 20 years of this franchise, if he's close to that, if Patrick Chung is close to what he was, if Marcus Cannon plays, that shores up your offensive line. But you got to build a defense that's top 10 so it can kind of carry the day with Cam Newton playing at an average level if he's your quarterback going into 2021. That's where they have to build it up, whether it's through free agency, through the draft. I trust Bill with free agency more than I do with the draft. He's had a pretty poor run the last 5 or 6 years drafting players, although I do trust him drafting defensive players more than offensive players. His track record is better on that side of the ball.
Yeah,
John, that's perfectly said. And I think that's something that so much of the Patriots fan base does not understand, is that solving the problem at quarterback is one problem, folks. It's one problem to be solved. That is far from the only issue on this team. There are issues in the middle part of that defensive line. I know that Lawrence Guy and Adam Butler are great players. I hear that all the time. Well, just re-sign those guys and you'll be fine. No, look at what happened last year. Those guys were trying to play the position of 3 players with 2. It doesn't work that way. You need a presence in the middle. Maybe not a traditional nose tackle. I know a lot of people are saying you got to get a Vince Wilfork in this draft. I don't think there is a Vince Wilfork in this draft. You may be looking at guys that can come in, be versatile, maybe 3 guys that can rotate in playing that traditional middle and the 2 ends on the interior of the defensive line. That's so important for the Patriots this year. You also have questions on the offensive line. You mentioned Marcus Cannon. The Patriots do stand to save a considerable amount against the cap if he's not back. Do they look at him and say, well, you know what? We've got a little bit of depth of talent on this roster, young talent, guys like Justin Herron, who really played well in the latter part of the season. Michael Wayne, who came in and absolutely blew the doors off of everybody and proved that he's an offensive lineman in this league to stay. But you're likely going to lose Joe Thuney. I'm cautiously optimistic that they're going to re-sign David Andrews, but you never really know for sure. So what do they do on the offensive line? Championships are won in the trenches. They're won on the lines. That's where the Patriots have to go. And then once you solve the quarterback problem, who's he throwing the ball to? Where do you go in terms of wide receivers? Where do you go in terms of tight ends? There's a lot of improvement that needs to be made there. And if the reports out there are to be believed that Julian Edelman may have played his last game in New England, then you're really looking at a dearth of talent, because Julian not only brings effectiveness on the field, but he also brings such a field awareness and a savvy that only a veteran that's played in a system like this or has been battle tested can bring to the Patriots. So perfectly said. I'm glad you gave me an opportunity to go on my little rant there, but I've been waiting for someone to say that because it's such an important part of the Patriots offseason. Quarterback is important, folks, but it's only one problem to be solved.
Like, you've officially surpassed the total of minutes that you've spoken in every appearance John has made on the show in that last rant. You've surpassed
set out to set that record today, and I did that, and now I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to
Congratulations.
I'm going to retire right now at the pinnacle of my career, and I'm just going to sit back, drink some coffee, and watch some John King. So I'm done for the day.
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop. Well, unfortunately,
hey, you know what? That could be a good side podcast, John. I like that.
Mic drop.
I like that.
Just when you think, though, Mike, that you're out, we're gonna suck you right back in because
pull me back in.
we started the show talking about the late great John Candy, and we're gonna make a huge assumption here and say that you're a fan like we are. So today is the anniversary of his passing, unfortunately. So we reminisced with some great moments, and we'd like to hear some of yours. What were your favorite John Candy movies or moments or what have you?
I would say the best movie he was ever in by a long stretch was JFK. Now, he had a minor role in that. And it was a great ensemble cast directed by Oliver Stone. That's the best movie he was in. But his best performances would be either in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with Steve Martin. I thought the chemistry between those two was absolutely great. And I know they were really great friends away from the camera as well. And the first time I ever saw him was in Stripes. And Stripes was one of the first movies I saw multiple times because it came out in 1981. I was a senior in high school. I was just getting into movies. I always loved Bill Murray, thought he was wildly talented. And that movie I must have seen 25 times. And John Candy is in it and plays a pretty prominent role. So I'd say Stripes, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles are like his most memorable performances. But the best movie he was in with JFK. But, that would be like saying Jimmy Garoppolo won 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots. I mean, he was just kind of part of a team, and he just happened to be in a great movie.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned JFK, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
That's something that I think is very unsung with John Candy. I read something recently, an interview with Oliver Stone, who said that John Candy was always his first choice for the role of, I believe it was Dean Andrews that he played in that movie, and who was allegedly an attorney that was contacted by Clay Bertrand, who asked him to be Oswald's lawyer. That's been, whether you want to believe it's been proven or it's been debunked, there are a lot of evidence to support both, but not going to get into that. That's a commentary for another day. But Andrews and John Candy bore a striking resemblance to one another. Andrews was very heavy set, very much like Candy, very full type face. And Candy was the guy he wanted. And John actually was very, very nervous and very scared to do this movie, because when he heard about all of the actors that were going to be in it, he was so nervous. And his first scene that he shot was opposite Kevin Costner, who he really admired, thought he was a great actor, great body of work there. And he was so nervous to be in the shot with him that the role where you see John Candy fidgeting and you see him sweating profusely, that was real. That wasn't props. That wasn't anything that they had to prepare. This was real, and he was very, very nervous to do that scene, but he pulled it off, and I think he did a great job in a small character role that really suit him well. So glad you mentioned that.
John, we actually, so you had actually brought this up. I can't remember. I think this was a few months ago when we were talking about the passing of a musician, and I forgot. I don't remember, but you had said that sometimes, and I kind of feel the same way, that when these musicians or actors or celebrities die, their work kind of gets elevated a little bit, maybe to a territory that doesn't necessarily belong. And we said guys like John Candy, we talked about Chris Farley because of the so many comparisons between the two. And we said, in this case, this is not the case with those guys. Their body of work speaks for themselves. What people say post-death is true. This isn't inflated. This isn't, this person died, one of the greatest of all time. It's like, he was really good, but, we're throwing the word greatest around just far too often, far too casually, in every context. I mean, we keep bringing it back to sports. I mean, don't even get me started on that. I mean, we don't have enough time in the day to talk about that, but do you agree with that? I mean, John Candy, his reputation, what he's known for post-death is right on par to what he was when he was alive.
Absolutely. I mean, he's revered in Canada. I mean, they want to change the name of their version of the Oscars to the Candies. That's kind of a play on words with Canada as well.
Yeah.
He just had tremendous comedic timing, and as Mike brought up, how good he was in JFK as well, which always leads me to believe that a great director could probably put the three of us on a set and make us palatable as actors. I mean, the great director does that. I think it was Blue Jasmine, where Woody Allen nearly got, what's the comedian? Oh my God, it slipped my mind. He was a vulgar comedian in the late 80s. Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh.
All right, so Andrew Dice Clay is in a movie, Blue Jasmine, directed by Woody Allen. I'm like, what? Like that doesn't work. And he was phenomenal in it because Woody Allen's a great director. So the great director pulls those great performances out of actors that you wouldn't think would have it in them. But no, John Candy's a legend. And Chris Farley, I mean, talk about a force of nature. Oh, my Lord. They're two of my all-time favorites. I'm a little on the portly side myself, not as much as I used to be. So I always have kind of a liking to the cherubic actors, including the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I think has been kind of forgotten in death, not elevated, if anything, been diminished in death. I think he was one of our greatest actors ever, and he died 6-7 years ago. And he's someone that seems to be out of the public consciousness, and I think he is certainly was a mega talent, and miss him incredibly. Philip Seymour Hoffman, may rest in peace. I
agree with that. No, I'm a big Philip Seymour Hoffman fan, and
myself as well.
His range was incredible. I think the first movie I ever saw where I knew of him when I was a kid was Twister. Like, come on,
right?
You know what I mean? So, like, this.
Yep.
And then again, I mean, and that was just the bare bones of what he was able to do, and yeah, it is kind of strange that he's kind of fallen on the wayside. I don't know. Is there in your mind, a reason for that? Is it because maybe he doesn't have that?
Well, I mean, he died apparently from drug overdose, so that kind of.
Well, I mean, so did
people weirded out a little bit, but so did a lot of other people.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, Michael Jackson and Prince had their issues as well, overprescribed, whatever the case may be, and they're two all-time great musicians. Prince, I think, is like the ultimate musician.
Yeah.
He only played like 18 instruments, self-taught, and played them all well, and
we actually,
wrote songs and sang and danced, and
The funny thing is, we brought those two. That was two other examples I brought up of guys that
right.
They were as good as people say they were post-death. I do agree that Prince is. I let's just say I've over the years have more and more of an appreciation for Prince than I ever did when I was younger, and
yeah.
But
anyways, he was phenomenal. I think he's the most talented musician of my lifetime. I mean, I know people like to bring up Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake doesn't write songs, doesn't play instruments. I mean, those are two pretty big things that Prince had over anybody else for the most part. But as far as Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman was an actor.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a star.
Yeah,
so I like people don't even know who he is, which is as big a compliment as you can pay an actor. I mean, if you saw Capote, I was like, when I went to see that, and I've seen it several times, I was just shocked because Capote was a small man, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, about 5'9", 5'10", but he was stout. In fact, he had been a football player and a wrestler in high school, and he had some sort of injury that derailed his career, and he went into acting and fell in love with it. And I just kept looking, going, how the hell is Philip Seymour Hoffman Capote? And it was, so he was more of an actor than a star. So I think when you're a star, that's what happens. Whereas if you're an actor, people don't even really know who he is. They go, oh, yeah, that's the guy that played Capote, or that's the guy that played in this movie. And, yeah, he was really good. What was his name again?
But then you start...
And, again, actors find that as the ultimate compliment because they want to just dive into their characters, and he was phenomenal.
Well, and then you get the situation where you start looking up his body of work, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. He's him, right. He's that, he's in this, and then that's where you get that appreciation. And fortunately, I've seen a lot of his work, anyways. But to your point, I mean, unless you have that marquee, a banner up on the cinema, as you're going in, or you're the star of this big movie, it's hard for the majority. I mean, obviously the film buffs, the ones that really enjoy film and the art of acting and all that stuff, they're going to know who Philip Seymour Hoffman is. It's the fringe. Mm-hmm. We talk about this with sports fans all the time in sports arguments. It's and why just saying anything is kind of damaging to the whole brand, because it's like it's really about the fringe out there. The ones that aren't gonna necessarily go out and dive into the details. They're gonna hear a couple headlines. They're gonna hear a couple words. And they're going to formulate their opinion on that, and guess what? People aren't out there, talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman in the same breath as Denzel Washington or some of these other great actors of this last generation or so. Mm-hmm. And again, I love Denzel Washington. I'm not taking him. It was just the first really big. He's one of my favorites. So like he was just one of the first really big names that popped in my head. But he has those marquee movies, you can put Training Day, Denzel Washington, and the list goes on. I don't want to sit here and list all his movies. We could, again, go on and on and on about that. But you're right, though. Philip Seymour Hoffman doesn't really have that. And that's fine, because it doesn't take away from what he does, and his range was incredible. I don't want to insult him. I would say he was a poor man's Daniel Day-Lewis. Now, that may come across as an insult, right? But to me, Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor in the history of acting. The only person on Daniel Day-Lewis's level as an actor is Meryl Streep. So to call Philip Seymour Hoffman a poor man's version of Daniel Day-Lewis, please don't take it as an insult. But yeah, I mean, I would think that Philip Seymour Hoffman's range is greater than Denzel Washington's range, or even Tom Hanks' range. Yep. But Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington are stars, but they're also great actors. You don't run into too many that fit both.
that, check both boxes, great actor and star. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Daniel Day-Lewis, great actors, not necessarily stars, because I think they're so damn great at acting that people don't even recognize them. When you go to see Denzel Washington, Tom Hanks, you're going to get a phenomenal performance, all-time great actors, but you still kind of know it's them on screen, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
there's a little difference there.
I mean, you talk about Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, the guy turns into Abraham Lincoln, and it's like, all right, well, and I understand that type of movie isn't everyone's cup of tea, but fortunately for the three of us in this room, I feel like that's a movie that we could all appreciate and enjoy. But and then I'll turn around and go watch In the Name of the Father. But hey, again,
right.
we're bouncing all over the place. Could you believe this started with John Candy? But no,
Yes.
Again, he's a guy that in his own genre was incredibly he had a lot of range for comedy. And even like you said, I mean, some of these guys, and it's unfortunate that they don't get the chance to show their dramatic side, and they don't necessarily all want to, but there's a lot of comedic actors out there that you turn on the drama, and look at Jim Carrey, whether you like him or not. I mean, he has an incredible ability to act, and it's not just his comedic way of going about things, which he's great at, but his acting ability is right up there. So I don't know. I'm glad we started talking about Philip Seymour
Look at Tom
Hoffman,
Hanks.
So,
yeah, Tom Hanks was a comedic actor, right? Bosom Buddies, TV show, Splash, big, elevated him to a star, and then he goes into Philadelphia and Forrest Gump, and you're like, holy crap, this guy can really act. Same thing with Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon early in his career, and by the way, Jack Lemmon is Tom Hanks's idol. Jack Lemmon was a comedic actor who took it into drama. Robin Williams the same way. I think if you nail comedy, and most of the actors will say comedy is more difficult than drama, that you're able to segue into that and show your full range.
No, and they certainly did, and now it's like most people think of Tom Hanks as even maybe this is a little outdated, but I'm thinking Saving Private Ryan, but then that was like 25 years ago that movie came out. So or not, 21 or 99, I believe it came out. So 21, 22 years
making
ago.
us old today.
Yeah,
talking back about a movie that's over 20 years old. It's kind of crazy when I felt like I just went to the theater to see it.
Hey, all I know is when I'm in a conversation with the two of you, I'm the young guy. I'm the youngster, so I will take that, and I will never let you live it down. So, can you believe this show just flew by today? Just flew by. We didn't even talk Joe Montana and Tom Brady, and I was going to bring that up to you, but I was more eager, honestly, to talk about John Candy, and then I'm glad the conversation evolved, because I love a good actor. I love a good actor, and it's good stuff.
The connection between John Candy and Joe Montana is there. Just before Montana's game-winning drive against the Bengals in the Super Bowl, getting in the huddle, down 16-13 with 3 minutes left, he got into the huddle. It was a TV timeout, and he turned to his team and goes, "Is that John Candy sitting there?" And at that point, the other 10 players are like, okay, this guy's in charge here, and this guy's not going to poop his pants in this moment. And we know he went down the field and hit John Taylor with the game-winning touchdown in that Super Bowl. So there's the connection between Joe Montana and John Candy.
Would you believe that's the second time we've heard that today? Because Mike was Johnny on the spot with that one. He was he was ready to go. So we're just efficient as all can be today. Just always bringing it back full circle.
Ian, do you realize how fortunate you are when I joined the show with Mike that you have two Renaissance men on the air with you?
Yeah.
I hope you greatly appreciate that.
I remind him of that every day.
Yes, he does. At once an hour, every hour, 24 hours a day, every day.
Actually, I believe the exact words are, "Don't you ever get down on your knees and thank God that you have access to me in my dimension."
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we're direct descendants of Julius Caesar and Leonardo da Vinci, so enough said.
Yeah. And modest as all can be. Folks.
Oh, yeah, Italians are really modest.
Folks,
a little modest.
I hope it's been as good for you as it's been for us today. And with that, we will have to say goodbye, but give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live, at Full Press Radio. I'm at IGLEN31. John Sapichetti, he's at John Sap25. And of course, Mike, he's at MDABATEFPC. We will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Give us a call then. Leave us a message overnight. Send us a text. Doesn't matter. We want to talk to you. Take care. Have a great night.